Ethan, how are things going with you?
They're okay.
Yeah? Appreciate you joining the calls every week.
Well, it's a little bit of people time.
Yeah,
For one.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
A chance to meet folks, and I've had a couple more conversations with Sheila from last week, which has been nice.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's what we're here for, forming connections.
Yeah. You never know where you're gonna find them or what little thing is gonna ring for you.
Right, exactly.
I like Sheila's model right now. Beach house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lockdown beach house. It's just like, oh no, what am I gonna do here?
Just sit and look at the water.
Although I'm sure that's its own kind of brand of going crazy, like being at a place like that. I don't know.
I could see that for sure.
Like it's too nice and too comforting.
Yeah.
That's the Scandinavian in you, Leif.
Maybe because you need your like normal things to make that special. You can't
Right.
be like, you can't have
Contrast.
Yeah, contrast.
You need the bad bits to make the good bits better.
Exactly.
What you drinking?
I'm eating a bagel, so I'm not on video.
Oh, you don't want us to watch you eat a bagel?
Hi, everybody.
There you go.
Now you really see me.
Ooh.
Oh, you got some lighting.
Yeah, the lighting makes a big difference. You used to be the shadow person. Oh. Side lighting.
Ooh,
there you go.
Very nice.
It makes me look so weird.
I think you just are saying things.
I'm just saying things?
Yeah. I think you being in the dark looks really weird.
I love the dark.
See, I can do that.
Don't
too.
be afraid of the dark.
Ethan, I am your father.
No!
I love that. But I have to tell you, I'm really into the pew 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 lately on my cell phone. I know I'm old and late to that whole Apple iPhone thing where if you text somebody pew pew pew, it sends lightsabers, laser blasts.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't know that.
I didn't know it till like about a month and a half ago. And now just random people I know, I'll like send them pew 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 and it sends them lasers, like laser blast.
That's fun.
It's what entertains me.
Never works. Whatever you tick and talk into.
Well, welcome to some new people. I'm seeing some new people popping in right now.
You guys don't have any kids on your screen.
Hello.
Hello.
My name's Lisa Myers, and I am new to your group, but already I'm wildly entertained.
Well, we're glad.
Great. Well,
Welcome
good
in.
to have you. Yeah. We're seeing a couple new people here, and so definitely video is optional and audio as well. If you want to just sit back and kind of watch, participation is encouraged, but not completely necessary. So thanks for being here. We'll give it a few minutes for some people to pop in, and hopefully we'll get started.
I see no. No. Sorry.
Is that the bagel barking?
How'd you know? Mr. Dirks.
Looks like you're muted right now.
Good morning. Sorry. Yes, I am. My fault there.
How's it going?
Good, good. As good as can be in these times.
Yeah, totally. Investing a lot.
I've actually been extremely busy. Our business has been phenomenally busy this whole time. So it's been a full-time, like just all hands on deck, kind of moving forward at any given time. So it's definitely been a challenging and interesting time to lead and to help and work with people. So it's definitely been an interesting moment in time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about it.
How are you guys doing?
Hanging in there. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to, I think business-wise it's good, and socially I'm just like, can I like hug somebody soon? And
Yeah.
Yeah, the extrovert in me is definitely to a point of let's do something else right now. But
yeah.
I saw a meme, or I actually have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I saw a meme early on in the thing that was talking about a kid that comes back from college in 2030, and he's asking his mom about COVID, and he's like, hey, tell me about it. And she's like, you know, like the economy was horrible, we all had to stay home, and everything was tanking, and there was no restaurants and bars. And well, Johnny, you were 18 when it all happened. Do you remember it? And he goes, yeah, well, I remember, or you were 10. He goes, well, yeah, but what I remember is we had hot meals every night. We played games, and that we had time together and those things. And so I've tried to take that lens with this whole situation. And I actually, as you'll see in my presentation, started my career in kitchens. And so I love to cook. It's the only artistic gift that I have in my body, because you definitely don't want me dancing or singing or any of those, or drawing, for God's sakes.
Lies, I tell you.
So so it's been fun to be, you know, doing those things. We actually have 3 live chickens in our backyard too. So when we get really bored, that's our entertainment, is watching those guys run around.
That's awesome. No, I like that meme. That's a good reframe too. Just to, you know, appreciate what this does give us.
Yeah, it's easy to live with the scarcity mindset, but it's so much more abundant when you live with that abundance, and like, hey, all these opportunities. I mean, I think it's really fascinating right now that this is the first time in my career that I can remember where people actually have abundance of time. We've been talking so much about a time-starved world and time-starved consumer and those types of things. And just the fact that people do have time right now, and they're willing to invest that time in the way they're spending it. So it's an interesting thing to think about how the capital market has changed amongst humans in a big way.
For sure.
I love all these pictures. And Miss Myers, I love you. And your child. And Mr. Dirks, I've seen you sing, and I know you can sing.
I must have been inebriated then, because I don't remember that at all. And I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that I damaged you in such a way. I'll make it up to you at our next coffee meeting.
Okay. I remember it being really fun, so all I remember is this, your bellowy voice and going, now that's how you sing.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like my alter ego after a few cocktails.
We gotta do a happy hour after this then.
100%. I hold a happy hour. So when we do get loose of all this, I do hold a happy hour in Georgetown. So any of those that you live on the side, there's a little dive bar there that I host a happy hour every Friday around 4:30ish to about 6.
Oh,
and
cool.
It's been a really cool thing. I've been doing it for about 10 years now, and people of all walks of life know that I'll be there, and they just will kind of show up at times. And so sometimes there's 3 or 4 of us, and sometimes there's 16 of us, right? but we've been taking that online and we've been doing it to help actual local breweries and local food establishments. So while we started with our bar, we've been kind of going and saying, hey, go get a growler from there and helping drive commerce that way. We've been now spreading the love around to some other neighborhood locations and things like that. And then at 4:30 on Fridays, jumping on Zoom together and just spending an hour or so. And that has been, well, at first I was very skeptical. It's been a really nice outlet of laughter and just connection and being able to just kind of feel like at least there's some sense of normalcy going on.
Working on some cool stuff. Well, cool. It is 9 o'clock, so figure we should get started. Thanks for popping in, and glad to see some new faces here and some old faces. If you're not familiar with 1 Million Cups, we are a community of entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs to connect with like-minded people and also present their business and venture and how to get some good feedback on it. So if you haven't already, download the app to check in. That's the best way to get notified of the next presenters, as well as connect with other people in the community. Otherwise, you can follow us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and Meetup, or just mark your calendar and show up every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. It's pretty easy virtually now. You just kind of pop in. You don't even have to show your video if you don't need to. But so what are we about? Sharing ideas, offering help, asking for help, building community, and supporting each other. And obviously getting real caffeinated with our coffee. But this is a place to just connect with others and share ideas and have some open conversation. We are presentations, not pitches. Here to connect, not just network. And we're for community, by the community, radically and intentionally inclusive. So making sure that we can do all we can to be open to anybody who is, who has a venture, who has a business and wants to present an idea, and maybe be a little bit vulnerable and knowing that, we don't really have everything figured out. So this is a place to connect and open up and get some feedback. So the 1 Million Cups Nation is not just in Seattle, but we have 168 communities all over the US, 3,500 attendees and 700 volunteers. So it's pretty cool to know that this is happening right now across the nation. We're here to educate, inspire, and connect entrepreneurs. And a special thank you to our community sponsors, Seattle Strong and A Small Studio, who keep this going. Everyone else here are volunteers, so we're here just making sure that this community keeps going outside of us too. So special thanks to everyone here. And so what to expect? We're gonna have some coffee and conversation, a 6-minute presentation from one of our entrepreneurs, and after that, a 20-minute Q&A to either just ask questions or provide feedback. This week will be slightly different, where we'll have a bit more of an informational kind of presentation, and we'll spend the next 20 minutes after that just having conversation and asking questions. So, and last thing is in the Q&A session, and I'll remind you guys of this too as well, but if you scroll down to the participants menu at the bottom, you'll see the participants icon, and then you can raise your hand if you have a question to ask. So with that, please welcome Project Bionic with Josh. Clap, 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 clap.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. My presentation today might be a little different than what you guys are normally used to. I got invited in kind of last minute, and they asked if I'd kind of share my journey and my story. So I said, of course I would. And then I talked to Leaf yesterday and kind of got the general format of things. So I've kind of changed my deck up a little bit. I think that when people get to know me and hear my story. I think the journey is interesting for most people of how you get to where you get to, than kind of, me talking through all the fun iterations I've done for the last 10 years. So I'll try to make this quick and keep going and keep us on time here. Again, my name is Josh Dirks. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Project Bionic. We are a social media only creative agency that was established in 2009. But my story goes way further back than that. I actually originally was born in Texas. I lived all over Texas as a kid. My dad was actually a college minister. So I got to witness really deep personal relationships from a very early point in my life. I grew up with probably 18 to 20 college kids in my house. That's one reason I don't twang. If I said anything in Southern draw, I got thumped. But ultimately, I got to do all kinds of crazy things. I was out in the middle of the desert looking for scorpions with black lights when I was 8, 9 years old. I got to work with, college kids that were doing PhD work. Just really experienced a lot of very, very rich life. I started my career in restaurants, and in 2002, I got laid off by Toys R Us, and I was living in Austin at the time. And so I decided then to make the jump to Seattle, Washington, not knowing a soul, not knowing a person, not having a job, not really knowing much about the area beyond a few camps that I attended in my youth. And so my girlfriend and I packed up all of our stuff and moved to Washington on a whim and a prayer. As I mentioned, my career has been kind of eclectic. I think this is a great kind of illustration of really what I think about careers. I think it's very interesting right now. In my world, I work with a lot of millennials who come in after 6 months or so and sit down and say, here's my career path, and here's my career plan. And they unfurl this very linear career that they expect to have. And I always find that very interesting because that's not been my career in any way, shape, or form. My career has really been more about how I jumped and moved across the pond to get to where I wanted to get to. So as I talk about my career here, I originally started at a place called Mr. Good Sense Subs and Pastas. Their claim to fame is that they have more locations in Kansas City than McDonald's does. And they were a franchisee. So I got to work there. The cool part is that the owner of that company took me under his wing, treated me almost like his own son. By the time I was 17, even though I was going to school and playing basketball at a high level, I was running my own restaurant and got the exposure to P&Ls and marketing and all kinds of fun stuff. As I decided to go to college and then drop out of college, I came back and started working for Papa Do's, which is a very fast-growing Pappas family restaurant. And we allowed me to go through and consult, reorg, do a lot of very interesting stuff. And then I actually went back to Mr. Good Sense and helped Randy turn that around and sell that for a couple $1 million, and realized that I'd sold my job. So I didn't have a job at the time, didn't know what I was going to do. I started asking him what I should do, and he had a friend that was working for Toys R Us at a pretty high level. And before I knew it, I was on a plane to lovely Newark, New Jersey. I was offered a job as a regional assets manager. And so what my team and I did is we actually traveled around the country, and we didn't do hard boot construction. We actually would do remodels, we do reconfigurations. We worked on the Times Square location. We had a lot of fun through the years. I was actually in the air when 9/11 happened, so I got to experience that. I got grounded in Philadelphia and had to drive all the way out to Denver. And our Times Square location was just about to open when that tragedy happened. So even living through corporate communication and crisis communication was very interesting. However, January of 2002, they were going through a downsizing, and they flew me up and brought me into a nice big wood-lined office or conference room and let me know that I had been let go, but I was so well liked within the organization, they wanted to tell me to my face. So without a job, I went back to Austin, Texas, which in 2002 was suffering a huge economic downturn as a kind of tech crash was kind of a tidal wave that was hitting there real time. So not being able to find a job, that's whenever we made the jump to Seattle. When I came up here, I got an interview with Door to Door Moving and Storage, which is based in the Kent Valley. They had an operations job available, and they brought me in, and they had a sales job available, and they interviewed me. And they brought me in a few days later and said, hey, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. And I was like, well, let's do bad news first. And they said, we hired somebody else for the operations job. Super bummed. I was like, well, what's the good news then? And they said, well, we think you're a sales guy. And I was like, what? I've never sold anything in my life. What are you talking about? And so I said, well, I don't have a job. I don't know what else I'm going to do. So I actually hopped on the phone, and within a few months became the top salesperson and moved into a sales management position and just trained up in that area. However, the company was raising a $38 million round of financing to go from 4 locations to 18 across the country. And as they were doing that, of the $12 million we were making, $4 million was going into marketing, which was usually done through radio, billboards, and television. And Tim Riley, the founder of the company, brought me a book called PPC Marketing, Get Your Business Found Online. he said, "You don't have any friends yet, Josh. Why don't you figure this out for me?" So I spent the next several nights with my 2 fox terriers in my apartment reading over this book. Went up to his office on a Friday, said, "I'm ready to do this dance." He gave me a whole ration of, you know what, because I was using a little site called DoubleClick with a site called Google instead of Yahoo. But got to explain geo fencing for the first time to somebody. So that was a really interesting moment. But we put $100 in, outspent 68 leads. We went through and closed 23 of them. You start doing the ROI math. It was very, very quick. So I pulled our $4 million budget down to $680,000 with 70% higher lead acquisition. We grew the company to $55 million. This was my onboarding into digital media, and everything that I had done up until this point had prepared me for that moment and really learning those things. At Door to Door, I went on to do SEO. I left there and started my own web development company that married both web development and SEO at Pinpoint Marketing with a partner in West Seattle. As I did that, I understood the technology landscape, started getting exposed to APIs and those things. And then Intercom Communications called us, which is the 4th, 5th largest radio broadcast company in the US. They had made a lot of acquisitions. They had a desperate tech stack. So me and my partner went through and upgraded their tech stack and kind of helped bring them along and created about a $400 million line of digital business for them. And it was a good time. It was exciting. But I had a daughter that was just being born in 2008. I was on a plane all the time. I was dealing with radio production directors, which if you ever worked with a PD is a good time. It was like kissing lions on a regular basis. So I had seen and been working around the idea of narrowcasting or sliver casting in digital media and started looking at the social media platforms as an opportunity to actually do that at scale. So in June of 2009, I stepped out and started what was then Project Bionic. Ironically enough, the basement I'm sitting in today is actually the exact same place we started the company. For the first 6 months, there's about 7 of us that work down here. So it's been kind of fun to return back to a location. Kind of our process and what we care about is that we believe in the connection and the ability to build relationships. And I think that in all of our businesses and entrepreneurs, you know, marketing or products or services can be really interesting as we think about how we go ahead and relate those. But what we really try to do is instead of taking a shotgun approach, take a very narrow target sliver cast approach and help drive people through the funnel to ultimately take an action. Sometimes those actions are conversions. Sometimes those actions are feedback. Sometimes those actions are reviews. They can come out in lots of different ways, and we define those with our clients. Kind of why we exist is for these different reasons. We're expertise, again, because we're one of the first agencies in the space that was social only. We don't do anything else. I don't play in Johan's spot of the branding and imagery and those types of things. You know, we really stick in our social media lane. We bring a lot of outside perspective. We have a lot of tool sets, the quality, the brain power, and the bang for your buck. The proverbial splash page of all the logos and all the cool kids we work with here locally at some point in time. But I think the other really interesting part is as I've watched this COVID situation start to take hold, something really interesting has happened in our space. And what we've seen is across the board, social media usage is absolutely surging right now, as we can probably imagine. However, counter to that, costs are falling. Many brands right now are suspending, stopping, no longer doing promoted posts, reducing the number of posts they're putting up. And so the costs are falling prohibitively. This is only through March of 2002. We've even seen further regression in April. And it's even in things like just reach, going through and creating impressions and getting your brand message out there. So as I talk to people right now, I think the very interesting moment in time is that if you have a social strategy, if you're looking at social, there's a great opportunity for us right now in our businesses or with our brands to go ahead and win the hearts and minds of prospective buyers or purchasers or clients or whatever your business is for a fraction of the cost of what we've done before. And because people have a quantity of time right now, they're willing to spend more time with you as a brand. So overall, I come today because I started my business in 2009, which was a wonderful, rip-roaring economic time. And now we find ourselves kind of back at this moment. And so I think that as an entrepreneur over my kind of less traveled path, I think the very interesting component of it all has been the fact that opportunity comes out of scarcity. And so often whenever you're looking, if you're reading the headlines, really being able to change your perspective and start to really look at the lens in a different way and thinking about how you parlay your past experience or past success into something new and interesting as you move forward. So that's a quick bit about me, quick bit about Project Bionic, and quick bit about the opportunity I see for entrepreneurs right now. I'll go ahead and flip it over here and just open it for Q&A. We can talk through some things.
Thank you. That's wow. Yeah, that's a lot to talk about. So, as a reminder, if you want to go and hit the manage participants button and hit raise your hand, and we'll call on you if you have a question.
I love that someone's had good sense on the call. That's fantastic.
Johan.
So I think you bring it, Josh. Thank you so much for presenting today. And as always, I really value your lens into a situation. Can you talk to us a little bit, because I think this is something that's been on my mind that you brought up, and my question around it is people are spending more time with a brand, and I think that they're out online seeing what brands are actually doing during this time. So some of the organizations out there that are large are really putting their best foot forward, and some aren't. And I think, and you see the content on social media when you're out there, and in an aggregation, when it comes to larger businesses and then more local, smaller businesses. Can you discuss a little bit of what you're seeing through social media that differentiates people opening businesses right now versus what corporations are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think corporations are playing it really safe. They're putting out the message you would expect them to put out. They're paying lip service to things that are out there. I always find it interesting when a company that's worth a couple $2 billion gives, $1 million to somebody and acts like they've, somehow changed the world as a percentage. What I do see though is the small businesses right now that are executing, and they're really leveraging social for all the aspects. And I think we need to be clear when we talk about social media that posting is not social. That's database marketing. It doesn't become social until the brand or that page responds back to somebody and creates dialogue and interaction, right? Ultimately, that's where the magic takes place. And so those brands that are being scrappy right now, we represent an artist that's has a huge African animal art, like huge canvases, 8 feet, 10 feet long. And his Instagram profile now is being able to go ahead and engage with people that are asking much deeper questions, or teachers are using his content now as they're going ahead and showing people who are working from home and talking like he's one gorilla that has 74 gorillas in it. And they're talking about how they count those, right? So all of a sudden now, here's somebody that you would never expect to not see in a museum, or it cost millions of dollars to have, or hundreds of thousands of dollars to have one of his pieces. All of a sudden now he's able to interact with school kids and motivate them and change how they look at wildlife and answer those questions. So I think it's really interesting how the smaller players right now can actually be a lot more dynamic and go ahead and really truly come alongside, because I think the lip service of this is bad is fine. But let's start thinking about the journey that everybody's on right now, whether it's, kids at home and parents at home working, and how you go ahead and supply stuff for the kids to do as a brand. It's those opportunities that when you start to think about the new context in which we're living and supplying activities, engagements, education, that I think those brands are really starting to win. I've been really impressed with our arts community, the museums opening their doors digitally and saying, come in and look at our stuff, has been a tremendous step forward by the arts community, I think, during this moment, and created a lot of attention and excitement around art going forward. So hope that answered your question, Johan.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Brad.
Hey Josh, thanks for your presentation. I really like your positive message, and your background is really impressive. One question that immediately came to mind for me, and maybe a lot of others can relate to this, is I get slammed with inquiries on LinkedIn and other social media from people from a similar space as you.
Yep.
And a question I always like to ask is, so how is what you do different, or what differentiates someone in this space? Because it seems like there's so many people offering similar. I don't know if they're similar or not, but a lot of people in that space.
No, I mean, social has blown up in the last 11 years into a galaxy of itself. And yeah, there's a ton of players that come into the space now. There's a ton of social media only agencies in the world now, that kind of thing. I think that what makes us very different is that we have been very dedicated to results from the very beginning, and making sure that we're driving the right business outcomes and actions. Now, a lot of social agencies will say that, but I think that our work and the level of client we work with, I mean, there's a large e-commerce company downtown that one of their logos was on our slide deck, and we can talk about them publicly. But there's a ton of things that we're doing for them in the background, whether that's recruiting for computer scientists or AI scientists to other countries, right? Very niche, very, very targeted. We do a lot of B2B stuff. So like FTI, which is the world's largest e-discovery tool in the legal field, we've helped create a lead engine for them that they're going through now. And it's been the lowest cost lead driver. We've had a 5-year relationship with them. And so it's the expertise and it's our focus on the performance that the business owner needs to get out of it. And ultimately from there, it's the length of relationships we have. Like Taco Time and the Carter family were two of our first clients, and they're still clients to this day. And that wouldn't be possible if we weren't results oriented and about the relationship and making sure that we were driving value for them. So that's really, I think, kind of our differentiator. I think to your point, yes, I joke with people sometimes when I speak that LinkedIn has taken over Hawaii's place as the spam capital of the world. It's really frustrating to me the way LinkedIn has morphed. I really love what Sanjay has done at Microsoft, but Microsoft has a horrible track record of acquisitions and what they do with those products. And LinkedIn, I mean, Skype is another example. It's amazing how much Skype has just been jumped over even in this moment right now, right? And so I have a hard time with where LinkedIn sits right now. And artificially, we know the costs on LinkedIn have been inflated. So when we work with people that have a LinkedIn and have a very niche audience, think about how you can drive them to a website landing page, and then you can pixel them. And what's really interesting, like with FTI, they thought that only lawyers would live on LinkedIn. We were able to show them other 88,000 attorneys that they were targeting. 63,000 of those were on Facebook. And I can go ahead and get a click for $4 here on LinkedIn, but I can get it for 77 cents. So we drive them from LinkedIn into FTI's site, cookie them or pixel them, right? And then we retarget them over here and bring the multiple impressions for a lower cost to drive that action, right? So that might be a little tip for you to go ahead and kind of cut down on some of the unnecessary spend, but also be able to really use the power of LinkedIn's targeting, but do it in a different way. I hope that answered your question again too. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's very helpful.
Zaki.
I have another quick question, if
Sure,
I can interject one more, is I have some clients that Yelp has a terrible reputation for, if you get one bad review, they never let it go. I don't know, do you help people with cleaning up their online reputations too, their Google searches and all that?
100%. Now, so Google search, as far as the way you show up in search, SEO, I used to do that. I know several people that are really good at that. I'm very dangerous when I give advice in that area. However, when you talk about your Google local profile and the reviews on there, absolutely, we go ahead and monitor that. So we have a Meltwater, it's a Radiant 6 tool, so we can monitor both conversations in general online and public forums, but we can also monitor all the review platforms for a brand. And so one thing to really remember as you think about Yelp is making sure that all the reviews left by people are actual reviews that are part of the terms of service. Something that I think is really interesting is, we work with a car dealer. So we'll have somebody go and go, don't buy from those crooks. I went in there and they tried to sell me a car, the same model, for $5,000 more than I got it down the street. Well, because they didn't purchase anything from you, they actually can't leave a review for your business. And so you can actually flag that and have that removed. If there's profanity, things like that, all of that stuff can get cleaned up and removed. However, what we have seen is one of the #1 ways of getting your Yelp reviews up is to respond to people leaving reviews. If you go ahead and pull them offline into a conversation, I cannot tell you the number of times that we've had, these people are the devil, they're the Antichrist, F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb. And we have reached out to that person and simply said, hey, we are really sorry. Had no idea the situation went on. We'd like to fix it. And what's very funny is we get notifications inside the system, and you'll get a notification before you get a response email that says that review's been edited. And magically all the F-bombs have gone away. And this is really my thing, is that we as marketers, so just give me a second to give this analogy, but I think we as marketers are like the laziest SOBs in the entire business world. None of us started out to be here for the most part, except for a few of us that have mental issues. And so like Josh was really good at biz dev, but couldn't close a door. Go have him be the community outreach guy. Johan's really good with spreadsheets, but he just keeps getting a couple of the numbers off. So put him in the analytics department instead of the finance department, right? We all end up there some way. And so because we're kind of this group of misfit toys, we also look for the easiest way of doing things. And I think that that's one thing that I found is that if you just put a little bit harder elbow grease in something and just actually reach across that digital divide in a very human way and spend the extra time really creating and following along instead of just trying to buy programmatic or those types of things, the impact can be so much greater at the end of the day. So yeah, definitely do that. And one hint for you, Brad, is don't do this in your office. Go to a coffee shop offsite or away. Maybe not even use your machine, or use your machine and go into an incognito window and search your business and look on the top 2 pages for which review sites are showing up for you, and then start to monitor and manage those. Don't worry about the other 500,000 that are out there. And if you do go ahead and see that your Yelp reviews change, you probably is because Yelp has moved his sales team in, and so they'll reorient your reviews for about 90 days. Don't freak out, just continue to tell them no, and then after about the 90 days when that sales team moves on, you'll see that it reorients back to the way it was prior.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a weird world.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
All right, Zucky.
Hi, Josh. Thanks. That was a fantastic presentation. Really enjoyed it. I love the story.
Thanks.
I do have a question, though. I'm just starting out. I left a long career, and there's a lot of people who are right now probably in the same boat as me, thinking about what they might, this might be the perfect time for me to come out of here with a new career, new business. How soon, or is it ever too soon to really start the social media marketing, do any marketing? I mean, because like, I don't have a product yet. Can I market before I have that product? I know what it's going to look like, I think, but when is that start date? Do I need to have a web page up already? What do I need?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I appreciate you asking because I think that that's something we get quite a bit. I think it's awesome as we talked about entrepreneurs about that. I think first off is at least having the mission or what you're trying to solve figured out and put together. Even if you don't have it fully engineered yet, think about how you can go ahead and put that value proposition out and rally a community of people, even potential clients, customers around it. So that way you can begin to get feedback and begin to test or balloon test some of your stuff. We have found, like with Kickstarter campaigns and things like that, we always get people coming to us and they always like, okay, well, we're going live March 1st. And I'm like, but it's February 25th. Like nobody cares about you right now. And you're going to go into Kickstarter and not have a community to support you. The Kickstarters that are successful in the world and the crowdfunding campaigns start 6 months earlier and build a community of people and an evangelist about the project that get people excited about it. So that when you do put it on Kickstarter, it can elevate it and people can find it. And I think that's a great example right now of kind of this new connected world and how entrepreneurs like yourself can begin to balloon test and understand what people are doing and how they're thinking and how they react to certain things and what works and what doesn't, so that when you start to put your alpha and beta product out there, you're hitting all the marks and you're not having to go through and completely re-engineer. It's way better to have robust conversation up front and figure out some of these key issues than it is to start ripping up code and having engineers change things long term. Or even branding message. I mean, all that stuff that you invest in. I mean, I'm talking about code right now, but you could think about even a service-based business and if you kind of misalign it. So I think definitely get out there now. And if it's just for like, even if you're not quite sure what path you're going to take, get out there for yourself and start to build a following for yourself of trusted advisor. I have a guy that's in France that I have never met. Luc Lepere and I have never talked like in a physical space. We've talked over these things for 10 years, but I know he's there and I can ask him questions. And we have these incredible back and forth. So we've built a relationship, and that all started with Twitter. So thinking about building your own community that you can go ahead and no matter where you go with the idea that you have a community of people that you can begin to balloon test and do things with.
Thanks. Excellent. Appreciate it.
I mean, very candidly, Eric, that's how Project Bionic came to be, is that we went through and we had the group of all these different marketers from all different backgrounds. And on Twitter, we had what we call the spontaneous happy hour group. And so one of us would just be like, put the hashtag in and tweet it out. And there would be a bunch of people, yeah, let's meet. And we meet at bars around the downtown core. And when we got together, we talked about how brands would be able to engage and interact in the space. And I have lots of notes from those meetings and happy hours. And it's really humorous and interesting to see what was right, what was completely off base. But in that group actually came one of my original partners in the business. And so that power of community, both online and offline, and how you can build those things. Obviously, we can't do a lot of offline right now, and I'm not advocating that. Please don't get me here. But ultimately, you know, that power and what we can do right now, because we do have excess of time, and building those communities can be really, really powerful in this moment, and be a springboard forward to kind of catapult you.
Actually, I know we have a couple people raise their hands, but I can't raise my own, so I'm just going to interject here. Because it's related to that last question in terms of, you know, being able to build a community. And I wonder what you might suggest or advise for small businesses, especially one-person owned businesses, in terms of like what to do on social media to start building that community. Something I've been working on for about a year and not really seeing as much engagement as I'd like. So kind of wondering like what what to do, and if anything, there's any like new ideas because of this interesting time that we're in too.
Yeah, great question, Victor. I think that we're very fortunate here locally to have a really incredible community that has spawned and really moved forward in the New Tech Northwest meetup group. I think what Brett Green has done with that group is something that can be inspirational, a lot of how-tos that we can take forward from there. So if you, and I know he'll have coffee with anybody. So it's one of those things, if you're thinking about your community, just sitting with him for an hour and listening to how he's built the community that's been incredibly inclusive, is one of the fastest growing on Meetup there's been in the entire world. I mean, they went to the White House, for God's sakes, to be recognized by Obama at one point in time. So like,
what was the meetup?
It's called New Tech Northwest.
Okay. Cool.
And they, and so, I mean, they're living through this stuff. I was with Brett for an hour yesterday on the phone, just having this conversation about his community and how he's, I mean, usually has 300 to 500 people meetups, you know, once a month. And now he's getting 30 to 50 online. Right. And he's worried about how he steers that community. So I think the challenge is real. But I think that it's cool that we have people in town that have built big communities. I think first, Victor, it's about going through and building out the plan around the community and around your social media. What I find is a lot of people take social media as what Twitter was back in the day, where you just sat down and pounded something out. And that can be very daunting. I'll be very candid with you. Social media is a lot like going to the gym. I do not like going to the gym originally. But about 6 years ago, with having small kids, I made a commitment to it. And me and Buddy just go for 30 minutes and start goofing around. Now I go for a couple hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays and have a community of people, and it's been really amazing. And that's the exact same way social media works. So what I try to tell people is, don't try to go ahead and have LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and everything. Focus on where your community's at. So if that's LinkedIn and Facebook or whatever that is, focus on those areas first and foremost. Secondarily, spend an hour at the end of the month putting together a content calendar for your next month of different things that are going on, ideas you have, quotes, what you want to do. The good news is right now that you don't need to post every day anymore. As a brand, you can post, 3-4 times a week, and that's appropriate as long as you're putting some money behind those posts. And when I say money behind those posts, I'm not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like with Taco Time, that has 150,000 people in their community, we found that with just a $5 boost, we saw that our organic reach and engagement went up 60% on top of that boosted post, right? So for just a few dollars to recapture them and make sure it's showing up in their feed and people are seeing it, can really go ahead and generate a lot more engagement and visuals for you. So have your plan, test your content wells, get that content calendar together. And what I find, like I have an attorney who's down in Renton that I've been coaching. He sits down for an hour on Monday and writes his 3 posts and schedules them in Facebook and is completely ready to go. And they're going out, and then he sets a calendar reminder in his calendar. So he checks back in and makes sure that he's managing the conversation. He's had a ton of success doing that, but he's gone from social media taking 3 or 4 hours and being really stressful for him. For now, it's about an hour a week that he's spending on it. He's seeing really good return on those types of things. So I think that's the other big thing is if social media has become pay to play, but you don't have to pay hundreds of thousands or even, hundreds of dollars to go ahead and participate. Really small budgets can go a really long way if you have a niche audience or target audience that is attached to your community and can really bring that back around in a really powerful way. And the good news is, we kind of illustrated in the presentation, those costs have dropped right now. So if you have a community that's not as robust and active as you want, right now is a great time to experiment with different types of content and different boosts and those types of things, because the cost is going to be minimal compared to what it was even 8 weeks ago.
Appreciate that. Cool. Sheila.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentation. I really like your visual of the lily pad career because I kind of have a similar idea going on. But I also was going to ask every single one of those questions people just asked. So I'll just add to that idea where it's like, so as a solopreneur, without a team, which becomes quite obvious the further you go along, what's the trick, or what are some tricks or special techniques around actual engagement, like a response, or what are some of the ways people respond that is engagement?
Yeah, so I think that there is the surface level of engagement that we know, which is likes, comments, and shares, which is interesting, right, and helpful. Remember, that's a hierarchy. So a like inside a feed is really passive. People get really excited about that. I'm like, it's not awesome. But what you should see is that over likes, after a while, you start getting more comments. And after you start getting more comments, you get more shares. It's about a relationship thing, right? Nobody cares about what you have to say till you prove you care about them. So as your content's proving and people in your community are seeing that, that's really powerful. I think one thing that we don't do very well, and sometimes we think about it more as marketing speak, and something I've seen happen the last 2 or 3 years, is we don't ask for what we want at the end of the post. Like, here's what I'm thinking about today. What do you think about that? Like, simply ask the question, hey, I'd love to hear your feedback. This is what I'm noodling on. What are you hearing, right? Starting to put that kind of verbiage behind it is really important. I've even worked with communities where they've been really dormant and we can't figure out why. We've tried a ton of different content, and we'll put out a post that's like, hey, there's 500 of you attached here. You came here for a reason. You're not responding anymore. What is going on? Does our content stink? Are we not on post? Here's a survey monkey. Give us 10 seconds, 10 quick questions, and tell us what we're doing wrong, and we'll adjust it, right? That kind of getting naked moment, like Len Saloni talks about, shows that vulnerability and really gets people excited. I think that because of how we can now structure a presence online, sometimes we also make it too refined and too over branded, and it doesn't seem approachable anymore. So making sure that you're asking for that feedback. In addition to that, whenever they give it, that you're going in and rewarding them by liking their post and commenting back and those types of things. Just seeing that kind of engagement will help to drive further engagement. I have a theory that a lot of consumers are sick and tired of the digital space because it's like a big canyon, and they keep yelling down it and no one's answering them back with their own voice. And so the more you can cut across that and begin to engage with your comments and those types of things are really powerful. But then additionally to that, as your brand, if you have other brands that you are following, go out and comment on their pages and start to drive some of that engagement back and forth, right? If you have some business partners that are also like, if you have a business and you have some partners that are aligned around that, you guys have conversations and drive engagement that way too. And then also think about the way you can go ahead and say, hey, here's engagement socially, but here's offsite on my website, an event and that kind of thing. Here's some other engagements that we can create and start to use that to go ahead and activate your community. At PB, when we first started, we talked a lot about how you kind of build for about 60 to 90 days and build your audience. And then you test with an action to see how truly engaged and following along they really are, and bought into your messaging. And then you build again and then activate again, right? So you're constantly checking to make sure you're building the right community that was willing to take the right actions for you whenever you were asking and requesting those things.
That's really interesting.
And again, well, I was going to say, again, start to monitor as you get into this, your likes to your comments to your shares count, and make sure that as you see over time that your community begins to mature. And all of a sudden now, like Taco Time has a radical group of people. Like I dare people to go on and call them tater tots. They will tell you that they're Mexi fries and they have a different density and different seasoning. So don't be an idiot, right? And I'm like, whoa, guys, like calm down. They don't know there's 10 comments like that in a feed, right? But that's how passionate they become about the brand. And the fact that we can talk about the density of a potato product and consumers glom onto that is the ridiculousness of what branding messaging got to, but what a powerful, powerful thing, right? That they can become the advocate in that way.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Zaki.
So earlier you talked about, and I really enjoyed hearing you say this, but you were answering Victor's question about, the social media posting, and you said, create a content calendar and sit down. Well, if you have multiple social arenas, let's say you've got a blog, you've got Facebook and LinkedIn or whatever else you have. Should you post consistently to one and then share that to the others, or should you move your content from one platform to the other and share within? That's a confusing aspect to me, and I just don't know where to start.
Great question. Again, I love that. So each platform is different in the way content is shared and how it should be structured. So one of my favorite things is on Facebook, people use hashtags. Well, because of security mechanisms, hashtags don't work on Facebook. So unless it's a branded hashtag or a conference thing, like you look kind of like an idiot. Like, come on, noob, but like change that around, right? So obviously you need to go ahead and put your structure. What we also find is that people want to overwrite in their content. And so, 3 sentences spaced out, visual real estate inside of Facebook's really important, images really important, that kind of stuff. So oftentimes when we talk about the content calendar, so then you get to Instagram, right? In Instagram, you can go ahead and ... down, and you can put in up to 30 hashtags. Well, people now can monitor and follow in particular hashtags. So all of a sudden now this is an organic way to be able to be found in Instagram. Same thing inside Twitter, you can use hashtags. LinkedIn has introduced hashtags a little bit to expose for people and things like that. So I think the really important part is when you think about structuring your content is, okay, where's my hub? Like, where's that hub at? So blog, website, whatever that is. Okay, this is where the content that I'm doing needs to originate and needs to be hosted at. Then in addition to that, I can syndicate it out to Facebook, and here's my initial message and write it for Facebook. But then you can take that same copy, right, and massage it for Twitter and massage it for LinkedIn, and then add your hashtags into it, right? So that way then you're creating it and it's optimized for the platform while you don't have to do a full rewrite of all the content at the end of the day. So that's kind of some of the tips and tricks we look at. And then there's a site called Hashtagify. It's a really simple site, but for those of you that are on platforms that use hashtags, it's a free site. You can put in for Twitter and Instagram the hashtag, and it'll tell you how many people are using it at any given time. And so that's a really powerful way of starting to create a hashtag block for your brand or for your persona online that allows you to start grabbing attention and those types of things.
Perfect. Johan.
Poor Leaf's trying to get in there.
I know, that's what I was going to say. He's not raising his hand, but he should. So go ahead, Leif.
Hello. Josh, it's been wonderful. You have so many answers. Now we have to go sneak into your happy hour and get all the other information. So I had a kind of question more about, in the business growing stages of your company, you seem to have a very specific lane. You know exactly what your lane is. You know what you do, what you don't do. I was wondering if you could tell a little bit about how it is that you ended up on that lane and just deciding and litmus test and figuring out what that was going to be.
Yeah, for me, it came down to the fact that it came down to a problem for me. I was living in a broadcast world. I was working for KISW. I would go in and we would be the hard hat, steel toe, construction brand of radio, right? And that's what we'd sell to our advertisers. Yet I go into some of the highest end law firms in town and hear them listening to KISW and be like, these poor guys and gals are listening to Whistle Stop Workwear and Rainier beer commercials, and it's so disjointed, right? And so my passion was like, if today Americans, adults, are hit with 3,500 marketing messages every day, we have literally created spam filters in our brains and eyes and minds, right, around these messages. And so if we're going to be successful in the brands of tomorrow that we're going to be the challenger brands, how were they going to do that? The way they were going to do that was by being smarter and finding out who their audience truly was and targeting that niche audience and with messaging that related to them. And that was my passion, right? I was humanizing brands was a big thing that we talked a lot about when I first started. So once I got into the humanizing brand space, then we built a process around it that no longer was independent of B2C or B2B or e-com or tech or whatever it is. It was a process we could put any brand through. And so a lot of people through the last 11 years have challenged me and said, dude, you should have a niche. You should go after this niche. And I was like, no, we can solve the problem. And this is a problem that every brand in the world has right now. And we have a process that's been proven that can go ahead and relate to any brand around the circle. And so now we can go ahead and work with lots of different brands, but we put it through that lens of, can we solve their problem? And do they have a niche audience that we can actually reach and activate? And so that's been our guide rails, right? And then the secondary guardrails of that is the values in which we're living. So like how we do our business, who we work with, that kind of stuff. I am notorious. I have a lot of women on my team. I have a daughter who's 11. I am very passionate about creating a more safe and workspace for women. And we've had clients that have been misogynistic to my team. And I have fired those clients when I found out about them and moved on, right? And so when you can live your values and you can live and you have a solution, I think it really creates very easy guardrails for you to begin to go down as you build your business, while at the same time making sure that you're picking your head up once a year and looking around and making sure there's nothing else you're missing. Gino Wickman wrote the book Traction. It is a absolutely incredible.
US.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I follow the Traction guidelines. Like everybody has one on their desk at Project Bionic. And we do a 4-day retreat every year where we go away to a big, huge cabin, and we rebuild the traction sheet every year around the next 12 months, not the 3 and 5 year and the vision and the values. We revisit those and make sure they're still pertinent and part of our space, but we refresh that. And every year in that moment is the chance for us to go ahead and find new things. But what I find with a lot of entrepreneurs is because there's so much stuff running at us, we don't kind of put those guardrails on our business. And so we keep grasping at things and we never get a chance to truly build a concrete base about what we can do. And so there's really no way of actually going ahead and launching because there's no foundation there.
That's great. Thank you for that answer. That was very helpful and kind of reminded me of things that I had thought of previously and also forgot. And yeah, Traction's a great book. I like Gino Wickman. Really great. It's just a nice, if anyone's looking for just an operating system for a company that you can just take off the shelf and just say, great, this is how we're working on it. And just not like a computer operating system, but like how do you manage people and time and meet and set your traction, organize a PTO and all that stuff. So great.
What I like is it talks to the people that are analytical and those that are very qualitative. It talks to both sides and both brains, and Traction does a really nice job of marrying those two things, because our office is like a 50-50 war zone of really creative people and very analytical people, right? And so it's fun to watch those two environments run into one another in really robust, situations at times. And I love that, but Traction's a great dojo for them both to get in and be able to kind of spar it out in a way to bring a solution forward.
Yes, very, very results driven. I like it. Thank you.
So as I sit here, Josh, and I listen to you, I all of a sudden remember back to some of our first conversations. And, we were talking about so many things that had there been the time for them, like it just wasn't pushed forward yet. And so as I'm sitting here and I'm remembering those conversations and I'm sitting in our current reality of pandemic COVID-19, not calling it the new normal anymore. I think that's a load of shit right now. We are in a pandemic state. Let's be honest. Let's not act like, you're peeing on my boots and telling me it's raining outside. No, it's a pandemic. Truth in advertising. There's a thought. So what it brings me to is, as we go into right now, like one of the things that I've really been delving into that has really kind of blown up my mind a little bit around social media is TikTok. And I don't know how, I don't post, I have one video that I thought I posted and it's in a draft. That's how good I am at TikTok. I know. And it took a lot, it's getting years to get that damn thing in draft form. So, but what I found out is I don't know how they, because it's not attached to my Facebook that I know of, or Instagram, or my Twitter, or my, but somehow or another, they feed me the most relevant ads of any social media platform. And the conversations there are more natural than any other platforms I go on. And I've really been driven to it. Now I've done some live parties in TikTok before this even happened. And so I'm curious, can you talk to us a little bit about where these things are going or might go, and how TikTok and Snapchat across the generational divides, maybe, because there's this huge war right now. It's like oh, you're over 30. Why are you here, old person? It's like, oh, go fuck yourself. Never French. But again, a lot of people are over 30 in the world. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, the TikTok sensation has been very, very interesting. It's obviously marrying some things together that are very much norm culture in the sub 25 category. If you think about, why can't I think of the video game right now that everyone's playing? Where they're shooting people, but then they sit around and dance and play music. Fortnite, right? Yeah, they're dance and play music in the background. TikTok's married that culture, right? My concern about TikTok is TikTok's owned by one of the largest Chinese security companies in the world. They are using, and they have a very deep data set that they have been procuring for 10 to 15 years, and they are now putting that on full display of how they've gone ahead and targeted and indexed Americans. So I find that to be a very interesting, especially because it's our children that we're putting on there. That's often on there, and it's a very interesting conundrum. I speak a lot to young people, and I talk about the digital tattoo, that every day when you're touching a keyboard, you're giving yourself a tattoo, and what does that tattoo look like, right? But I also think that what you're experiencing in a new environment when a new social network launches is really what's kind of interesting, is that what's great about social media is you kind of put technology out there and say, this is the way it's going to work. And then what ends up happening is the community itself begins to create the norms and how things work. And so anytime a new platform comes out, there is a lot of acceptance. There's a lot of experimenting, and this is really cool. And man, I can get some more genuine engagement because people are focused on it, right? I think those things are interesting. I think that'll be interesting to see where TikTok goes over the next few years as people begin to understand who's backing them and who the company is and that kind of thing. I remember that, in 2012, there was a site called Chat Roulette that would go through, and you would have a little webcam and show up for a couple minutes, and then it would flip off to something else. And it was gaining a lot of traction, and we were all really excited. And sometimes it was not the greatest thing in the world that you saw on the other end. And sometimes it was really cool stuff, and it was kind of all over the board. And then it came out that the Russian mafia was behind it, and the site went away like in months, right? And so I think that's the great battle right now that we're having when it comes to our identities online, who we are, the communities we engage with, that kind of stuff is who's behind it, how are they taking our data and turning us into the product, and what that looks like and what that changes. But I think from the user experience, anytime a new island opens up, boy, it's a good party for a little while, until the bots and some of the other craziness starts to happen, until people start to manipulate it. I think that socials, and not to steal from Spider-Man, but with every great power is great responsibility. And I think that's really true when it comes to social media in a lot of ways in these new sites. But I think it's really created, what I love about TikTok is I feel like I'm back to the early days of YouTube, where people were really on there and there was a lot of joy. It was a lot of excitement. It was wanting to show you cool things, or, hey, is this cool trick or this cool hack? And I feel like TikTok's there right now. I believe that will change as people continue to get on there and more people see it and begin to build other types of content. But I always love when social networks kind of launch, because that joy and the exploration and that excitement is something that you can't replace. And that's, what's really hard for the stakeholders right now, the leaders in the space right now, is they don't have that newness. So they have to think about features and other things that they have to roll out. But I find it to be very, very interesting that way.
Cool. Thank you. And all I heard you say was the Matrix is here.
The Matrix has been here. I think it's been
built, and it has now been connected through COVID-19.
Yeah, I think it's that's the really interesting part of all of this. I was just in South Africa, right, and I got to build these relationships with some of the guys there, and the relationships I have now with them through this technology and WhatsApp and that kind of stuff, and our ability to go back and forth and support one another and change business ideas and that kind of stuff is just, it's unprecedented. And so while I think that there's a lot of headlines and a lot of negativity about social media sometimes, I think that if you start to think about the power of it, and when you use it right and you use it in the niche for your business or for your community, whatever that is, and you do it in a way that's really genuine, value-led, there's just magic that can come out of that in a much bigger way. And I still really believe that at the core. And I believe this is an opportunity, as we've seen now, this change. And if you want to see what the future looks like, Ernest Cline is an incredible author that I absolutely love right now. And his book, Ready Player One, don't go watch the movie. That's not a good adjunct, but Ready Player One, the book, is an absolutely fabulous read. That I think people look back on and look at like 1984 and go, this was the same type of book, right? And it's a very interesting moment to think about how the Matrix is moving and where we go from there. And I think that that's super incumbent upon us as business leaders to begin to think about those things and think about how we adapt to that and how we meet that challenge and that change in the consumer relationship, because the consumer relationship is no longer linear. It's bouncing around all over the place, right? And so you really have to think about how you manage that relationship and how you build value in the experiences at every opportunity. To think about the experience with your brand as not being a given, but being like an opportunity, and you have to make the most of it at each point. By the way, too, I'm actually in the process of writing my first book. It's really kind of pertinent to this moment. I'm trying to get it at least rough draft done by the beginning of May here. I'm almost through it, but it's called Beckoning the Change and Rooting to the Unknown. I really believe now, as a species on the planet, the only thing that we are given right now is hyper change, and we'll continue to experience that over the next several decades. And I think one thing that's really, really important, I think COVID has really highlighted, is that for all the technology and all the medical science and all the things we've thought about, we have very little control in our world. And those entrepreneurs and those business leaders of tomorrow are those that are totally fine going to bed at night and going, I don't know what the answer is tomorrow, but I know the process that I'm living, the values I'm living, and I know that if I continue to go ahead and live who I am, ultimately, I will get to that destination and that endpoint, and I will ultimately make that change in the world, in my community, and my families around me. And so really becoming adept to change and beckoning it and saying, yes, let's change it up. Let's play with it. Let's do something is going to be a special need on the planet. And then that ability to go to bed at night without having all the boxes checked in this fabrication of control in your mind will actually create more genuine learning and more genuine ability to identify opportunity and execute on top of it.
And where can we follow you to keep tabs on that book?
I'm on Twitter at Josh Dirks. You can. I'm also pretty social on Facebook too. So if you want to hop in Facebook, I accept a lot of friend requests there. But I'll be trying to get that out here shortly. I'm really excited about kind of the moment in time. I've been kind of working on it for a while, as Johan knows, but it really hit me back in January, and then all this started happening, and so it's all really come together. But really sharing the story and the journey and making sure that don't fabricate a leaderboard in your head with your peers, with other people. To really go ahead and think about how we support one another. It's about how we interact and the values we exchange with one another, not who's earning the most, who has the biggest employees, who's putting the most to the bottom line, who's driving the fastest car. It's really about the community we live in. If we can learn to go ahead and fellowship together in those moments, I think that we can create a much more genuine community that's much more driven to be inclusive, and inclusive in a way that creates real dynamics and relationships.
Congratulations on the book you're doing, Josh, by the way.
Thanks. I also have another crazy idea right now. So we're doing a startup that's actually supporting people in South Africa, and could be the first geo-friendly, no injury, special education sports platform.
So what is it?
So we're overlaying dung beetles we're taking video of dung beetles, which are very interesting to watch in the wild. They can pick up like 50 times their own body weight and move things. We're overlaying a game board on top of it, and people then can play the game and guess where the beetle's going to go, almost like a craps table or something like that. And we're creating the game so that communities, especially like my son's lacrosse league and stuff like that, they can create their own communities, kind of like March Madness, and they can monetize those communities while creating education around different species. So we are in the process right now. Came to me last Tuesday night, so I've been working around the clock, but I'm working with 4 comedians out of LA. I got the former global marketing director of one of the big ad agencies out of New York that's working on all the brand and stuff like that. We got conversations with Harrods and Caesars and MGM right now about how this all works. So it's been a really, really fun moment on top of the chaos. So I guess that's the number one thing is beck and
new world.
Yeah, beck and chaos. Adapt and accept it.
Wow, what are you not doing? No, that's cool. Thanks again for sharing all that. As a reminder, this is recorded and will be on YouTube if anybody ever wants to, private or public actually. It will be public if anybody wants to redo it or rewatch it and take notes on what was shared here. There's a lot of good advice.
Victor, one last thing for you real
Yeah.
quick. Like my challenge to everyone still on the call is this. We do have time right now for the first time in forever. When we go back to normal, whenever that is, it would be a crime if you looked back and thought, man, I didn't really do anything with my time. I didn't move my business forward. I didn't move my community forward. I didn't move myself forward. So my challenge to anybody right now in the business space is use this time in a way that can propel you and do things. Do not waste this time. This is really, really valuable.
Great.
Yeah, I appreciate those words. I think there's something really like a lot of innovation comes from some type of suffering, some types of pain, right? And I think this is an opportunity to embrace that and do something with it. I actually wanted to ask that question as maybe of a wrap up is like what type of ideas or innovative, creative ideas now you've seen, not just brands, but just people in general, like how they've been using this time to come up with something new that we haven't seen before. And how can we then like use or tap into that creativity ourselves too?
I do also want to bring up one last thing that we ask regularly that I want to make sure we bounce this back to you, Josh, because it's part of the 1 million cups experience.
Yes.
And that's asking the presenter what we can do for you. And I think that's important from what you just said. Like, thank you so much. You're always an inspiration to me from the beginning, from the first moment I met you. And so this is such a fantastic question in this group to be able to ask you and say, thank you for everything you just brought. Humbly, how can we bring anything to you?
Yeah, so to answer Victor's question first, I think it's absolutely crazy within 6 weeks, all the people that are innovating around these platforms. There's a new beer pong game you can play virtually with office mates, right, on Zoom. The rise of House Party and the number of people that are playing games together. Like, how do we create community across this digital divide that makes it interesting? And I think that there's so many people that have quickly innovated right now. You're seeing new stories and new features and new things coming out all the time. So I find that to be super interesting. I think it's also really interesting from an entrepreneur standpoint that kind of runs across a lot of different spectrums is looking at how fast people have pivoted right now into production of certain products and how the global chain is either connected or not connected. And I think for a lot of people right now that are getting their rear ends kicked, this is a great litmus test of where we might be, because I very sadly don't believe this will be the last pandemic we see in our lifetimes, and that we as business owners better use this moment to ensure that our business are ready for the next pandemic or next event, whatever that is, that creates this kind of environment. Because the businesses that weren't ready for this and thought that digital was something they could solve in the next generation or they could retire before it hit are getting killed right now. And so, you know, this is where we have to be incumbent upon those types of things. So the innovation around this face-to-face thing and how we can bring some of the games, the things we knew in regular life back around, all the features that are happening, and ultimately thinking about your business, how you can innovate right now to ensure that you're ready to go ahead and be ready for the next one is really, really vital. I think from an ask standpoint, again, I just really appreciate being involved with communities and sharing my heart. So first and foremost, if there's things or other ideas you have or other opportunities, if there's people in your community that you think, hey, Josh could probably help them, I would love to be able to connect with those types of people. I really get a lot of juice out of mentoring and helping people and coaching people. So if there's something there I can help with, that would be awesome. If you know anybody that's looking for social media help, even if it's just consulting work or just, hey, what am I looking for? Obviously, we're continuing to grow our business. We're continuing to look for people, and we're well suited right now for the current environment. And finally, I will definitely get back in touch with you guys whenever I get my first draft of the book done. And I'd love to pass that around and get feedback from a community of people. So you guys would be one of the groups I would definitely think about passing that to. So for those of you that are up and like are voracious readers, that would be really, really awesome. So in the coming months, I'll definitely reach back out and see if we can't get that circulated a little bit and get some feedback.
Yes, please do share, and we will take a look for sure. So thanks again for coming on and dropping that knowledge. Is there anything anybody wants to wrap up with before we head out for the day and get going on some good stuff and ideas.
Thanks, Josh. This is very inspirational and wonderful and informative to hear your story.
Thanks, guys. I'm honored that that's the emotions it creates, man. It's been my journey. It's been a really fascinating one, and I'm just really honored to just be a student and continue to just kind of move in a path and with communities of people like yourselves. So thank you again for having me.
Awesome. Well, if that's it, then I'll let you guys all go. And thanks again for being part of 1 Million Cups. I know we have very familiar faces, so again, keep in mind of anybody who, if you found value out of this, keep in mind somebody who might also find value of attending one of these calls as well, and let them know. So with that, thanks again for being here.